Hello and welcome to this live session. My name is Ashley Lloyd. I will be hosting this session on project evaluation. This session is the fourth in a series of project management live classes, and the aim of this session is to explain the three main purposes of project evaluation, which are to reflect on the achievements of the project and the project objectives, to have a look at what went well in the project and what didn't, to reflect upon and gain insight into any opportunities for learning and development for future projects. So let's get started. I'm going to first start by talking about the definitions and the differences between project closure and project evaluation. So project evaluation is a vital step in the project management process. It is vital to reflect on the project as a whole to gain insight into what could have been done better. The key difference between the two terms is closure is about closing down the project, paying invoices, disbanding the team, wrapping the project up, whereas project evaluation looks at the positives and the negatives from the project. It measures the outcomes and the impacts resulting from the completion of the project. And these are measurable and auditable changes that can be obtained due to the project's successful accomplishment. They determine the extent to which the identified problems have been mitigated, resolved or eliminated. But it is vital to have a close down protocol in order for a project evaluation process to be streamlined and successful. So the project closure is the final phase of a project. You know, it's a point of where contracts are closed down, and it's basically about closing everything off. Whereas the project evaluation will really delve into what went well and what didn't. So let's talk about that a little bit more and how we can use tools and techniques to help in that process. So in the past live sessions in this series, I've talked about the different phases and processes in project management. And today we're going to be focusing on the final two phases. So to complete the project, review and report on project performance. It's also important to give praise and, notice how well the team have done, and also to be able to maybe complete some performance reviews with the members of staff that were a part of the project, to be able to give them some hints and tips on how they can improve, or to be able to give them validation into what they've done well. Also to get some feedback from them to be able to make the project evaluation or the project end report a little bit more in-depth and informative. And data can be taken from individuals at this point to be able to be used for analysis within the report. Okay, so one of the most efficient tools that I believe is useful in project evaluation is the 5 W's and a H. So the 5 W's and a H is a method that simply asks questions about the process or the project, and even helps to find the root cause of a problem. So an example would be, why was section B delayed? The why is sometimes even asked 5 times so that you can drill down to the core of the problem. The H is used to really comprehend and delve deep into details as it analyses and provides judgments to get to the facts. So, you may ask the why 5 times, but you may also ask the, what, as in, what resources could have been used, or where was a specific resource at a specific time? Was there some logistic problems? Or when could we have had more staff available? And also, who maybe could we have replaced, or could we have got an external member of staff in to make the process a little bit more simple? So there's a number of ways that you can delve deep into problems, issues, or delays. Or also, you can also ask these questions when things went well as well, to delve deep into how you specifically planned out that project and where you can improve on. Often this method is used within Six Sigma methodology. So for those that are new to this phrase, Six Sigma is a management philosophy which allows an organisation to apply disciplined, data-driven approach that continuously brings improvement in business process performance by reducing the variability in each business process. So Six Sigma is great when used regularly, as it creates an organisational culture aimed at learning to build processes that deliver the business or project output with flawless quality. But back to the 5 W's and a H, you can think of things like how could we avoid delays in the next project? Who specifically was responsible for the task? You could bring that back to Raki, what we talked about in the last session. If you didn't view the last session, all of our live classes are recorded on our playlist through Moodle, so you can have a little look back at that. But Raki looks at who's responsible for each task, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who needs to be informed. Now, if there was any sort of problems relating to task allocation, you could bring it right back to that, and maybe for the next project you can change who was responsible or accountable for each task. Always focusing as well on the deliverables. You could specifically use this model and this technique to look at how every objective went, basically. Okay, so in the past I've seen organisations use questionnaires to get feedback on the projects, and it's really good because you want feedback. But this form is a simple form that can be completed by the project manager or the project team or individuals that are responsible for each task or objective. So always considering how the project manager is supported, or how you can support the delivery of the project in accordance with the plan. As you can see, each responsibility can be rated 1 to 5. And can also come back to the Raki matrix again. They can be tallied up, and the higher the rating, the better, basically. So using a simple questionnaire or survey or feedback form is really good to get some sort of data from projects for the project evaluation report. So always thinking as a project manager, how did you support that delivery of the project, and was it in accordance with the plan? And if it did go off tangents from the plan, or if it did cause delays, then always trying to notice where that issue happens and how that can be resolved in the future. So let's have a little think about the end project report. Now, projects can be reported in a number of different ways, but considering the stakeholders and the shareholders and maybe the project sponsor, a report is a good way to lay it out, as there are a couple of different documents that need to be included. The initiation paperwork, whether a business case or a proposal, then the project plan with the clear deliverables. A benefits management plan is a structured approach for maximising good business outcomes for an organisation's results of change, basically. It will describe how the benefits of the project will be delivered and when they'll be delivered. Issues get in the way of progress, so encourage team members to report them to you. Issues commonly occur in projects, they happen all the time. So it's important to be able to log them down and not just, look at them at the end of the project, because you may need to resolve them while actually, maybe the first stage or the second stage of the project. Identifying them and understanding them, communicating them and the impact is really important to, address the issue. You can look at different ways of doing this, but delegating responsibility of action is really good, and setting a date for completion to resolve that issue or risk is important as well. Organisations often keep a log to document when an issue or a risk has been opened or closed, and it's important as a project manager to check the progress in resolving the issue. But this can be kept as a document, the issue log, the risk log, and that can all be accumulated and added to the end project report. Quality assurance, quality register is the planned activities implemented in a quality system, so the quality requirements will be fulfilled. Now, this might be one of the key objectives for the stakeholders, so it's important that you do keep an eye on the quality requirements, as it could be a legal requirement or an industry requirement. But there's two ways of achieving the quality register. There's two ways of achieving this: by using a process checklist or a project audit every couple of months. You could allocate a quality controller to this specific register or report, a lessons learned report, or it could just be actions from the quality register or from the issue risk. It can be used to document any sort of lessons that might have been of value to future projects. It's usually created at the end during the project closure process. But again, if the lessons learned are monitored throughout, and ways to resolve problems such as regular issues or risks or quality are added in there throughout, it will take less to conduct the project closure. So all of these documents, all of these topics should be included within the project end report. So let's move on to what they uncover together. So for the stakeholders or for the shareholders, they will give an overview of the success and the failures. There might be information there as to why a project was delayed. There will be a review on the project, business case, or a reflection of the plan. There will definitely be a review of the objectives, the targets, and the specific strategies to get there. There'll be some form of review on the team performance, whether that's individuals' performance or team performance, and a review of the resources, and that's linking not just to the tools that are used or the equipment, it's to the people as well. And obviously, as we've just mentioned, the lessons learned that can be followed through and done better in the next project. Okay, so moving on to the project information and moving right back forward to the project proposal and the project plan, it is important to go back to the plan when looking at the project evaluation and consider the usefulness of the information within the plan. So an example could be, if the project manager has spent X amount of time on a Gantt chart and had to update it weekly, and it hasn't even been viewed by many people and it hasn't been that useful, then is there a point in doing one in a similar project in the future? If budget control was a major issue, maybe it might be useful getting an external body to manage the budgets, or maybe it might be worth getting a specific individual to be in control of the budgets, or maybe the budgets just need to be a little bit more realistic in the future. So this is a good tool, a good technique to use. Maybe get all the project team together and ask them to list 5 items that they think were particularly useful or went well in the project in accordance with the plan. You can also do the same activity and consider what didn't go well, and ask yourself the 5 W's and a H when conducting this meeting or this project evaluation team meeting. Okay, so let's think about the information now that we're getting from conducting and completing the project closure and the project evaluation. The information that you get can be analysed in a number of ways. You can use comparisons even from past projects to look at the different variables from one to another, or you can look at comparisons such as budgets, for example, the actual costs compared to the variable costs compared to the end costs. Then thinking about frequencies, so how many goods were faulty per month from a supplier. Would you like to consider changing suppliers for the next project? How many numbers of days was there without a breakdown or an internet interruption, for example? How many telephone calls were there from customers complaining throughout the project? So considering how you can use that data and analyse the frequencies between. Then the numbers can relate to obviously a number of different things, such as cost, time, dates that events occurred, for example. If you have numbers, you can analyse that data and work with it to be able to improve them numbers maybe on the next project. Then we have indicators, so you can think of the indicators, for example, as the speed of a logged issue or its progress or the time it takes to resolve that issue. For example, the indicators you might have set as specific, so to resolve an issue within 48 hours, but was that realistic? You can then analyse that information and see maybe if that could be changed to 24 hours or maybe a week on the next project. And then the variable measures, it looks at the quality of the team communication and how well people are interacting with the customers. So thinking about, could them communication channels be changed? Was it necessary to communicate or have a meeting every single day? Was that needed in the time constraints for that project? Also, moving back to I think the second one in our series where we talked about stakeholder management. So thinking about communication there, did you need to be informing stakeholders more about what was going on? Did you need to indicate to the project sponsor that more was needed? So always thinking about them verbal measures. Also, as a manager, was you using the right management style with individuals? Was you leading people in the right way? And then the subjective rating looks at the quality as judged by a knowledgeable person. So their perceptual feelings determined by the experience of that individual. So that could link to quality again or standards. You might need health and safety representative to come in and give you advice on a specific area. Or that could be that in order for one task or objective to be completed, it would need to go through the quality assurance process. How long did that take? That experienced person, could you maybe employ them in-house next time so you didn't have to wait for an external body to come in to close off that task? So a number of things can be thought out when analysing information, but this is a good checklist for you to go off. So analysing the project, you've got to consider the information, how it's arranged, what it's going to be used for. You've got to think about, maybe you could use spreadsheets to analyse trends within numbers. Maybe you can look at, gaps in trading, or, patterns or dependencies. So thinking about different ways to demonstrate that information as well. So that could be, the patterns or the gaps could be displayed on a table, or could be presented to the customer or the stakeholders or the project sponsor in, a PowerPoint or a presentation format. And always considering that your conclusions for project closure should be based on the information as well. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're all still with me here. We're going to look at now another checklist, but this checklist looks at, the project closure. Now we are moving back, but this can all also be included in the end project report. So let's think about the deliverables. So the deliverables to reach the end of the project and start of the closure process, the project manager hands over the document for the stakeholder to sign off. So always got to think of the deliverables there. And then, thinking about up-to-date relevant closure documents, as we've mentioned, such as the lessons learned report, the benefits management approach, the risk report, all included in the end project report. That documentation should be organised in a way that can be filed and archived. All project docs need to be able to be found, because what's the point in putting together a big report, presenting it and putting it away? Think about how easy it will be to search and retrieve that document, to make sure it's useful in the future. Following on recommendations, so these are given to the people who will support the products or the project after the lifespan of it. So, you might want to give some information to the person who's taken over. So, for example, you may have, built a wall for the council, for example, or built a building for, the council. And you may want to inform them that this still needs to be done, that still needs to be done. Just maybe say relevant checks or something like that once the project is finished. So looking at finances, thinking about, as we mentioned earlier, paying off remaining invoices, closing any project-related contracts, and making sure everything's finished. In a place where I worked a long time ago, they forgot to close an invoice for a software management provider. So what they were doing were providing support for software they were using on that specific project, and a year later they got invoiced over £1,000 for it because they never closed off that contract effectively. And even though they weren't using the software because the project was complete, they still got hit with a bill. So they completed the end project report and they hadn't even included that in the finances, so that invoice was on them and their company. So it's important to be able to close them off. Considering the resources, so the resources from the equipment to the people should be released from the project, and if they're owned by the company, resign them to a new project, for example, or close off their contract and finalize any payments to them. So going back to the aim of project evaluation, so it is to discover what went well and what didn't, and it's to reflect on the achievements of project objectives and deliverables, and it's also to gain insight into learning and development opportunities for future projects. What I will do now is I will close off the sound and the recording, and I will hold off for any questions that you may have. that was the end of my session today. I just want to thank everybody who's watched the series for project management, and I'd like to say thank you to anyone who's been involved in our live sessions.